first time I was really seriously reading the Bible was after two failed attempts. Don't start with the book of Genesis, start with the book of Matthew. The first time I was really seriously reading the Bible, I became fascinated with this very simple line. In fact, I think we heard this gospel not that long ago, so maybe I've said this recently, but repetition is the mother of teaching, so bear with me. They come forward to Jesus and ask him, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? And Jesus gives many answers, but he ends with this thing. Moses gave you this law because of your hardness of heart. But in the beginning, it was not so. When I read that, I started to ask myself, what does that mean? In the beginning, it was not so. Much to my joy, not long from then, I started to read a book of the theology of the body and teaching by John Paul II on being human. And he takes that scripture passage as his launching off point. And not only answers many of my questions, but reaffirms some of my own thinking. In the beginning, it was not so. The two great things that Jesus Christ came to defeat in his life, death, and resurrection are sin and death. Sin and its consequence, death. Because in the beginning, it was not so. We live in a world marked by all kinds of tragedy. Bad stuff happens all the time. And sometimes it's, merely personally, subjectively bad, like, you get caught at a red light, or somebody backs into your car. That's a bad thing that happened to you, right? Subjectively, maybe. Like, you'll get over it. And then you hear other things happen, right? And all of a sudden, that bad thing is in new context, right? You have a bad day, you get up on the wrong side of your bed, your foot hurts, somebody backs into your car, you walk through a strange field and you pick something up on the bottom of your foot and you smell funny for the rest of the day. You're having a bad day, for sure. Then you get a notification on your phone. You find out somebody else's house is on fire. Or a plane has crashed in the swamp. Or another person has cancer. Or there's another shooting. There's a new war. There's some grave new tragedy that's happened. I remember very clearly one time Father Mark was telling the story about how he went to do an anointing. And the man didn't really say this to him, but kind of just gave the impression. Again, the guy didn't say this, right? Child, I don't know what you think you're here to do, but I need you to help me go meet Jesus, right? You could be having a bad day. Had the third angry phone call in a row. That doesn't usually happen, by the way. You all are lovely. You treat me so well. But there are days, right? And often when I'm getting an angry phone call, I don't do the thing. Somebody's angry was late. And then all of a sudden, there's new context. Somebody's dying. Okay, well, all of my problems go away. Because I get my bag and I go to the hospital because there's a family that's having a real crisis. I'm having a personal crisis. But in the beginning, it was not so. Sin is the result of rebellion, and it is a contagion that lives in us. St. Thomas calls it a vice. It's a bad habit we just can't get rid of. Bishop Barron often calls it an addiction. Just can't kick it. The tradition calls it an infection. We just can't get away from it. And ultimately, the disintegration caused by the habitual state of sin leads to death. the tragedy, heartache, destruction, everything around us that is awful, from the pothole in the road to international wars and conflicts, is the result of sin. And here's the good news. In the beginning, it was not so. Be brave. Endure a little longer. It might get worse before it gets better. But in the beginning, it was not so. These pathetic people that bring this woman to Jesus, not because they are filled with righteousness and zeal for the law. They wouldn't have created this charade. If they were filled with righteousness for the law, they would have stoned her right then and there. But that's not what they did. These pathetic, small people bring this woman to Jesus to trap her. If he says, no, you don't want to stone her, he's ignoring the law. If he says, yeah, go ahead, kill her, now he's broken Roman law. It's catch-22. However, the spiritual masters say that when Jesus starts to reach down to the ground, the two things they think that he wrote in this dirt was either the words of the psalm or the sins of the elders. And he says to them, let it be who is without sin, throw the first stone. Go ahead. He does both, right? He's not saying go ahead and kill her. He's saying, if you think you're righteous enough to do this, go for it. And what's unique about this gospel, I don't know if you caught it, this is one of the only instances I can think of, where Jesus wins against the Pharisees. Where they are moved. Usually, they are as rock-headed, hard-headed, you know that person in your life who never learns? That, just like that. But there's like 50 of them, right? And they walk away, beginning with the elders. This is one victory over the stubbornness of the Pharisees. Because what do they recognize? Any day of the week, that could be me. I'm not fit to judge this one. Because Jesus had called out their sin. The same contagion they were going to kill her for lived in them too. We're no better. But in the beginning, it was not so. Take courage. Just a little longer. However long this life is going to be, however much suffering or heartache we endure, in the beginning it was not so. Death and sin are the results of rebellion, but they're not permanent. And while death may feel like an absolute law in this life, because in this life it for sure is, it is not the end. Because in the beginning it was not so.